Good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm Leland Vittert. We are officially in a gas price crisis. While those of us who actually buy gas figured that out a few months ago, the president didn't take action till today, for the first time in history, ordering the non-emergency release of 50 million barrels of oil from the nation's strategic petroleum reserve. It's unclear how or how much, if any, real price relief it will provide the American consumer. We're going to figure that out in the coming weeks. But today, the president admitted he had to do something with prices at 7-year highs.
I will do what needs to be done to reduce the price you pay at the pump. From the middle class and working families that are spending much too much, and it's a strain.
There's serious questions tonight if he is actually doing everything he can, but we'll get to that in a minute. The president is really caught politically between progressives who view high gas prices as a way to force consumers into green energy and the American consumer who historically holds presidents responsible for pain at the pump. Here is former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee last night on the show.
I think even if you're on the view that we got to transition to lower carbon pollution, that doesn't mean you want to make the price go up all at once and have everyone invoke a massive transition cost. I think that's a little bit of a misnomer.
Yes, but there are some people who want that. Remember, that was President Obama's economic advisor. The energy industry is not exactly helping President Biden. They blame the high prices squarely on the president's policies.
He is the cause of this. We produce 2 million barrels fewer every day than we did just a year ago. And the reason why we produce so much fewer oil is because, yes, Biden has made it harder to drill.
The president, as you might imagine, took umbrage to that narrative today, trying to explain how anti-drilling policies have nothing to do with prices that are now 60% higher, now $3.41 a gallon, than they were last year
I
at
also
this
want
time.
to briefly address one myth about inflated gas prices. They're not due to environmental measures. My effort to combat climate change is not raising the price of gas.
Today's rollout before the president decamps to Nantucket for the Thanksgiving holiday appeared hastily arranged at best, with basic facts missing. Take a listen to the Secretary of Energy in the midst of an energy crisis a few hours ago.
There are various figures about this, so I'm curious if you know, how many barrels of oil does the U.S. consume per day?
I don't have that number in front of me, sorry.
So some suggest it's about 18 million, which would suggest you're releasing less than 3 days' worth of supply from the petroleum reserve.
So this is really a question about a short-term strategy that allows us to make this bridge. So it's not we're going to not supply all of the oil for 3 days, obviously. We will be releasing it over a period of time.
But perhaps it would be helpful to know how much is needed per day when deciding how much to supply over a period of time. It's not us criticizing the administration's move. There is bipartisan skepticism that this is much more about appearing to do something than actually doing something. We begin with Washington correspondent Kellie Meyer live in D.C. on the near universal blowback to today's move. Good evening, Kellie.
Good evening, Leland. Well, that's right. There's political pushback from both sides of the aisle here in Washington. Democrats like West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin calling this a Band-Aid, while Republican Senator Rick Scott of Florida says the U.S. needs to be energy independent. Here's him talking with our cameras earlier today.
Joe Biden is just clueless. He releases something in our strategic reserve, that's going to be a short-term, if anything, benefit.
Combined actions will not solve the problem of high gas prices overnight. It will make a difference. It will take time.
As you just heard the president there admitting today that it will take time for this to impact prices at the pump, and Americans and drivers need this relief now.
Well, certainly, and as everybody's going over the river and through the woods to get to Grandma's house, how does the administration explain this contradiction of pumping more oil into the system while saying oil is the cause of climate change that has to be stopped?
Well, the White House is defending that the president is doing this to help the American people, while they're saying he is still committed to, quote, an ambitious clean energy agenda and goals here. Today, the energy secretary saying that they need to get off oil and gas while also signing off on the oil release. She was pressed today by reporters on how this move is going to help families right now.
Well, you said your effort is primarily targeting working and low-income families. What do you say to those families who are feeling the pinch right now at the pump? Prices are very high.
Yeah, no doubt. This is why the president has been really thoughtful about this. I mean, this is, we've looked at every angle of what the tools are to him. He feels so strongly that all Americans are feeling the pinch as a result of gasoline at the pumps, and short term, we have to do everything in our power, and that's why we have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But he also feels very strongly that long term, the strategy really is to go clean.
The energy secretary there acknowledging that this is a short-term solution, pointing to the president's Build Back Better plan as a way to achieve clean energy goals. Leland?
All right, Kellie, Meyer in Washington. We'll check back in and see if gas prices go down tomorrow, I guess. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, Democrats are facing growing divisions amid fallout over their losses in Virginia and fallout over gas prices, among other political issues. The group found that most voters there could not articulate what Democrats stand for and could not say what they are doing in Washington. This is a Politico report who had access to some of the focus groups that were done. Continuing, besides fighting, the findings fall in line with public and private polling nationally in recent weeks. Sara, Axios reporter on politics from Washington, visiting here in Chicago. Batya Ungar-Sargon, deputy opinion editor for Newsweek, joins us now. Ladies, good to see both of you. You listen to this idea that Democrats are having a hard time articulating a message and agenda. Batya, how much does this have to do with their agenda in 2020 was Biden 2020, not Trump?
I think it's a really good point you bring up. It's really hard to avoid the fact that when it comes to the class divide in America, the Republicans are increasingly being seen by working class Americans as being the side that's speaking to them, and the Democrats are increasingly being seen as the side that is out of touch, that is speaking for the elites. In 2020, it was the first year that the Democrat, Joe Biden, got more donations from Wall Street than President Trump did, and that's no accident. It's not because, Wall Street suddenly is cool with redistribution or with a strong working class.
Well, that's a great point. Follow the money, which is, Sara, something I know you and your compatriot Lachlan do at Axios. How much of this divide on messaging and sort of identity crisis in the Democratic Party is because of this real infighting between progressives and moderates?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help, right? What people see, what constituents see, is reporting about Democrats infighting. They see progressives and moderates going at it head to head almost every day. But at the same time, that can't take away from the fact that Democrats have a PR problem, and they know they have a PR problem. I was speaking to several House frontline Democrats. Those are folks in those really vulnerable districts. And they were saying, we know that we didn't do a good job messaging on the Affordable Care Act. We want to do better with the infrastructure bill that just passed. And for example, Congresswoman Susan Wild, she represents this district in Pennsylvania, she told me a friend of mine thought that the child tax credit was from Donald Trump. They didn't know. This is a friend of the Congresswoman. So clearly Democrats have a lot of work to do.
What they've done. Speaking of Virginia, and sort of very specifically to that, we talked during the election time about how blame was being divided. Here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Democrat loss in Virginia. Take a listen.
I think that the results show the limits of trying to run a fully 100% super moderated campaign that does not excite, speak to, or energize a progressive base.
But at the same time, though, you think about what President Biden had to do today. So much of his policies have been progressive. Now, all of a sudden, he's run up gas prices so much, you're having to release part of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. You almost get the feeling that he also is really caught in this divide.
I completely think that he's caught in this divide, but it's so funny when Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez says that what happened in Virginia is a sign of not leaning in hard enough to what she called the progressive base. Leland Pugh came out with a study last week that found that just 6% of Americans define themselves as progressives, right? And I don't think the Democrats have a messaging problem. I think that their messaging very much mirrors who they view as their new base, which is that 6% of highly educated Americans, the most white, the most highly educated, who call themselves progressives. I mean, everything that they are doing these days seems to be very much leaning into that. And so the messaging really actually mirrors the platform.
Yeah, I think my father used to say that nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising. Sara, but I guess, Sara, as I look at you sort of shaking your head, is there a more nuanced view of progressives just being the loudest voice in the room?
I mean, 100%. That's what you see with the Republican side as well. Yeah. There's infighting on in both parties, and Virginia, the Terry McAuliffe who ran in Virginia, he didn't run a progressive platform, right? He ran a very moderate platform and still lost. So I don't think that Democrats are just trying to sell to progressive ideals, right? Because they're also trying to message to people in the middle.
Right, and it's also why Glenn Youngkin had to run so far away from Donald Trump, which brings us to some polling that was leaked to Politico about 5 key battleground states for 2024, Trump versus Biden. 73 electoral votes at play. Now, these are all states that were won by Joe Biden. Arizona, Trump is now +8. Georgia, he's +3. Michigan, +12. Pennsylvania, +6. Wisconsin, +10. These are swings of 10, 15 points at some point. Batya, what do you attribute it to?
You know, forgive me, Leland, but I do think it's a bit early to be talking in the, about the horse race.
Oh, but it's so much fun. Come on.
It is fun, but, I'm sure Sara would agree with me. We can't really drag our profession any further down the road of being, of living up to its bad name than we already have.
let me ask you this, though, Sara. Okay, forget talking about 2024 and as much fun as it is, and it allows the media now to bring up Donald Trump again, which is all of our favorite topic because it rates. But in a larger sense, do we use that as a proxy for the congressional midterms, for how people in those states perceive Joe Biden?
Oh, yes, right. You can totally take it for the midterms, but I want to take it further than that. I completely agree. How people are reacting, how people are responding to the current president is pretty standard, though, and I would caution you about how people respond to the current president in power at the time. Of course, we saw in 2010, Democrats lost terribly in the midterms, but then President Obama won re-election. So we can only take it so far to the midterms, and we could see it aligns with how President Biden is polling himself, right? He's polling pretty badly.
Which is pretty... although, just to sort of put a bow on this, President Biden, Batya, is polling at historic lows with the exception of Donald Trump. It's not like he's some wildly popular president out there and Trump still beats him.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, I think he's really caught between a rock and a hard place, between progressives wanting more progressive messaging on issues like race and moderates saying, hey, wait a minute, we're going to be, we're going to lose the very people that we need to win. And you do see Biden struggling to sort of hold a very diverse coalition together. And I mean, to me, what Donald Trump represents in the heartland is not, his penchant for tweeting in a really ugly way. It's the fact that the economy was working for the bottom 25%, as difficult as it is for lefties like me to admit it. I think that's what people are really remembering is the economy of 2019, and hopefully Biden will be able to get us out of this terrible situation.
Yeah, they're remembering the good times, as the human brain is so powerful at doing, and forgetting the crazy. So sort of MAGA without the crazy is what that poll is a proxy for. Hey, ladies, awesome conversation. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
to see you. Good
to see you both. Welcome back home, Sara. It's good to see you. Across America, roving gangs of thieves are now acting with impunity. They run into stores, taking anything and everything before running right back out. It's different than the petty crimes we've seen in the past. These groups are organized and thorough. But it is really only a matter of time before somebody gets hurt, whether that be a mother and a child out shopping or one of the gang members who comes face to face with a trigger-happy mall cop or perhaps clerk who tries to stop one of these robberies. This is video just north of Chicago. 14 men ran into the Louis Vuitton store and walked out with $100,000 worth of purchases. As you can see from this video, they were in and out in just 15 seconds. In San Francisco, thieves hit stores across the city for 3 days straight. In this video, you can see the group armed with hammers stealing jewelry. That's the Sam's jewelry store that they're running out of. They were smashing some of the display cases earlier. Across the bay, 80 people raided a Nordstrom, and you can see them running out to getaway cars that were in place waiting. Doors were open. Same thing happened again last night in L.A. Now, one mall is putting out these barriers in an effort to keep the crooks out. You can see them rolling out. You might be wondering why these people feel so emboldened to try this. In California specifically, a new law changed the punishment for thefts. Someone steals less than $1,000 worth of goods, it's considered a misdemeanor instead of a felony. But it's not just California. At least 40 states have lifted the threshold for felony theft in the past 20 years. The National Retail Federation says it shows in these statistics. They lose $700,000 per $1 billion in sales every year, a little less than 1% because of organized crime. We all end up paying for that in higher prices. It's easy to think shoplifting is a victimless crime, but it's not. The organized gangs behind these are becoming more and more brazen, as we've seen, more and more violent as they fence the merchandise on eBay and Amazon and then fight over turf for where to steal from. In times like this, we bring in criminal defense attorney Phillip Turner, Lieutenant Tracy McCray, Vice President of the San Francisco Police Officers Association. Appreciate both of you being here. Lieutenant, start with you first. How did we get to this situation?
Well, I think, you know, it's encapsulated in Stanley Roberts' Gotham by the Bay, where you just see this reckless lawlessness, because there's no accountability. You know, they're not afraid to come in and commit these crimes because they're not going to be held accountable.
Phillip, before you were a criminal defense attorney, you were a federal prosecutor for an awfully long time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Given the unrest that happened last summer, where we saw sort of the beginnings of these organized lootings of high-end stores, did that create a permissive environment that now sort of inspires these gangs going forward?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're on a slippery slope to going down here, and that's what's going on, and it's continuing. And they've become much more organized, and you know, they have cars lined up, they communicate, and so they can hit these stores with impunity. So it's all a product of that.
Yeah, for sure. This is video from the Louis Vuitton store. They know what to hit and what they can sell.
Right.
Lieutenant McCray, what could be done to put the genie back in the bottle, if anything?
Well, you know, the DA doing his job, you know, having a reputation that, you know, you can't come into the city and commit these crimes, whether it's here in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, LA, that, you know, you will be punished. And when people think there are no consequences, then the sky's the limit. You know, Prop 47, reducing theft, you know, under $1,000, you could do it 10 times. What if you get caught one time, but you get a citation because it's under $950? So 1 out of 10, anybody will take those odds.
Yeah, we compare the states. These are rates among states that have raised the threshold. States that have raised felony theft thresholds between 2020 and 2012 had crimes decline similar to those that did not, in very sort of statistically insignificant ways. But I guess, Phillip, where does this go from here? If people are able to get away with these smash and grab robberies and clearing out jewelry stores and they get away with it, what do they do next?
Right. Well, I mean, it just escalates, and it's going to continue to escalate. Obviously, they've got to change those laws and make it so that they can prosecute these people for felonies. But I've always said that we're not going to incarcerate our way out of this problem. I mean, obviously, we've had, you know, draconian statutes that have long penalties, and we still have this tremendous problem. And I've always believed that what we've got to do is we've got to start indoctrinating people at an early age that they shouldn't take other people's things and they shouldn't harm other people, starting at, say, the age of like 2, because that's the only way we're going to have their minds right, so they stop this stuff. But also, you've got to have vigorous prosecution, and also you have law enforcement able to have the tools to go after these people and to stop this, because it's only going to get worse. And obviously, these things are on the news, all of them. San Francisco, Chicago, all these things. So people say they can do it, we can do it, and they just do it.
Yeah, well,
and
they also say they did it and got away with it, so we can too. Some of the pictures we were showing you was of the warehouses.
Right.
The massive warehouses now that have been created by these organized gangs to keep all the goods that they're then fencing. Lieutenant, how much of this is organized crime, and then how much of it is people who saw organized crime get away with it and see their buddies who have Louis Vuittons and figure, well, I might as well go make a run at it as well?
Well, I think it's exactly what Phillip said. You know, you see other people do it, then they want to do it. But it is organized. They're covering license plates on these cars that they're driving, using as getaway vehicles. And it does start in the home, yes, you know, right from wrong. But as law enforcement, we can't go in and raise people's kids to teach them from right and wrong. That has to come from the parents, you know. So my daughter isn't out there stealing. She's working to go into these places because she can afford to buy this purse. So, you know, at some point, yes, in the family dynamic, you have to teach your child right from wrong.
Yeah, there's no question about that. It's an excellent point you both make, and we're proud of your daughter, Lieutenant Phillip. It's good to see you, as always, Counselor. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and enjoy the family time around the table.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Same to you.
Coming up, Colorado makes a controversial decision about sex offenders. Plus, Texas tells the Biden administration they've got the border handled. How long can the Lone Star State go at it alone?
I've called for him to resign. Somebody that does not want to do their job and secure the border of the United States and be the Secretary of Homeland Security needs to resign. You're putting American citizens in harm's way.
All right, that was Florida Senator Rick Scott today blasting the Homeland Security Secretary. It's nothing new for Republicans. They say the Biden administration has been a complete failure when it comes to the border. The lack of federal enforcement means that Texas is going it alone and pushing state resources to the limits to try and stop the flow of illegal immigrants. This is a video from during our time on the border. Governor Greg Abbott has ordered now an additional 10,000 state troopers and National Guard units, all part of Operation Lone Star, which is funded by the state of Texas. The state is spending almost $3 billion over the next 2 years on its border security operations. That's triple what it's spent in the previous 2 years. Obviously, the change in administration speaks to that. And there is yet another caravan of migrants in southern Mexico that's now making its way to the Texas border, this largely of Haitians. Lieutenant Chris Olivarez, Texas Department of Public Safety, with us on the border on a very buggy night in South Texas from the Rio Grande Valley. Lieutenant, good to see you. Boy, it's one thing to surge resources in the midst of a crisis. It's another thing to have an ongoing crisis. How long can you guys keep up this operational tempo with the Border Patrol overwhelmed?
Right. So great to be with you, Leland. Thanks again for having me on. We're going to continue deploying resources as long as the border is unsecured right now. And we've been working border operations for years. So our men and women know what they're doing. They're experts at border security because, like I said, we've been doing this for years. We worked a similar operation back in 2014. That operation went on for almost 3.5 years. So again, these numbers that we're seeing this year have been historic compared to other operations that we've worked. So we don't foresee this slowing down anytime soon. The numbers continue to increase. Just these past weeks in the Rio Grande Valley, we're seeing large families come across, unaccompanied children, and the single adults, the ones that we refer to as runners. We're starting to see a lot more of those come across along the southern border. So again, we're going to continue deploying resources to the southern border as long as it's required and as long as that border is secured.
Yeah, this video that we're looking at is video from the latest Haitian migrant caravan that's coming up now from the very part of southern Mexico. You and I first started talking the last Haitian migrant crisis under the bridge in Del Rio, so another group on the way. Since then, you guys have gotten a little bit better at this and more organized. I now understand there's this like row of shipping containers that have been put up on different parts of the Rio Grande, which in and of itself is pretty impressive. But how much of that is show and how much of that actually does something to stop the flow of migrants?
Well, it's a great deterrent, and we saw that that took place in Del Rio when we had the surge of Haitians that came across. We know that it's a very effective strategy. When we deployed over 600 DPS patrol cars along that southern border, and it acted as a deterrent, and we're able to stem that flow of migration that was taking place. So again, here in Eagle Pass, that video right there that you're seeing is from Eagle Pass at the port of entry, and you see shipping containers, Department of Public Safety patrol cars, National Guard, and also there's some barbed wire along the southern border as well. But one thing to keep in mind, the viewers need to understand, is that we're only able to deploy these resources on state property, on property that we have access to. If it's federal property, the federal government does not want us to take any type of enforcement action or to deploy resources that you're seeing there on video right now. So that's a challenge right there.
Wow.
And that's a question that needs to be asked. That's a question that needs to be asked of the federal government as to why they do not want Texas to take enforcement action on those properties, because we're more than willing. We have the resources to do it. But again, the question is, why don't they allow us to do that?
That's fascinating. I want to drill down into this. So far, Operation Lone Star, 1,500 arrested, 3% convicted through guilty pleas, additional $3 billion approved by the state legislature. So it points to this idea, 10,000 state troopers and National Guard members. You guys have the resources, but even though you're volunteering to help do what the federal government won't, they're actually saying you can't go on federal land to try and keep the state of Texas safe.
Right, and you're correct about that. That's one thing that there's a miscommunication there with the viewers and the American people that don't seem to understand that. They seem to think that it's very easy for Governor Abbott just to shut down the border, shut down the ports of entry. But one thing to understand is that that's federal property, and the federal government does not want us to take enforcement action on that property. That's why right now we're only able to take enforcement action on 2 counties in the Del Rio sector for criminal trespass, actually arresting illegal immigrants for criminal trespass. So that's the issue right there. That's the challenge, to get them on board and to allow us to take enforcement action, because the state of Texas is more than willing to step in and do that for them. But again, the question is, why don't they want us to do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. One, the next time we talk to the administration, we're going to ask and see if we can't get an answer for you. Lieutenant, good talking to you. Thank you for braving the gnats and the mosquitoes on the Rio Grande for us on a Tuesday night. It was good to see you as always, sir.
Always good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. There are only 6 states still enforcing mask mandates. Illinois is one of them. We're going to introduce you to the mayor who is fighting back. And tonight on Banfield, a can't-miss interview with Kyle Rittenhouse just days after his acquittal.
Why have you used hand signs that are commonly associated with white supremacy?
That's a good question. I didn't know that the OK hand sign was a symbol for white supremacy, just as I didn't know that those people in the bar were Proud Boys. They were set up by my former attorney, who was fired because of that, for putting me in situations like that with people I don't agree with.
Ashley's full interview with Kyle Rittenhouse tonight, Banfield, 10, 9 Central. Welcome back. Last Thanksgiving, masks were about the only defense we had against COVID, as ineffective as they are. This Thanksgiving, we have the vaccine, which works, therapeutics, which keep the unvaccinated from dying, and vast natural immunity. Yet some governors just can't give up the ghost. Illinois' governor is one of them, along with Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, and Washington, that have statewide mask mandates. The mayor of Naperville, Illinois, the state's 3rd largest city, says data shows COVID is about the same in maskless states as it is in the masked states. And it's time for Governor J.B. Pritzker to blow the whistle on the mask police. But the governor says he knows better.
Are the hospitalization numbers, for example, increasing, decreasing, staying the same? We want them decreasing. They're not currently, just to be clear. New hospitalizations are flat. That is not a good sign.
Well, to be fair, researchers in Minnesota have argued the data to support masks for all really is far from conclusive. A review of several studies shows cloth or homemade masks were anywhere from just 2% to 38% effective, while medical masks were somewhere between 30 and 50% effective. Steve Chirico, mayor of Naperville, which is about 30 miles southwest of Chicago, is with us now. Do you believe that Pritzker's motives, Mayor, are pure here, or does he sort of enjoy the power of being in a pandemic emergency?
Well, hey, first of all, thanks for having me. We love this station, and we appreciate you guys, what you're doing. Listen, I was pretty vocally against the governor last year when he shut down the economy, and I was saying, hey, listen, we need to use our tools, including requiring masks and social distancing, education on sanitation, like washing your hands. But this year, I think his strategy has been a pretty good one and has served the state pretty well. But we've come a long way since last year in terms of our, as you mentioned at the opening there, with vaccines and therapeutics, and we're not in the same place we were last year.
Well, no, everyone agrees we're not in the same place, but I mean, do you question the governor's motives, or you just think he's coming to the wrong conclusion and that's why you want him to drop the mask mandate?
I think he's getting to the right conclusion. He has teased the state here a couple of weeks ago that he was ready to drop it, and I'm trying to encourage him to do that right now, because when you do look at the data, especially if you look at the death rate of the Midwestern states, the 9 states in our region, none of them have masks. And we're all in about the same category.
Yeah, we've got some of that data here, and data is nice because it is indisputable. So Illinois is the only one with a mask mandate. This is per 100,000 residents. Hospitalized, actually Illinois is at the lowest. Cases, Illinois is somewhere in the middle. So again, I'm trying to get to this question of why do you think Pritzker is so insistent on staying in this pandemic mode?
You know, I think it's frustrating for everybody right now, especially because as we see that, as you mentioned earlier, that there's just so few states that have embraced that strategy. And the strategy just doesn't seem to be playing out in terms of its effectiveness. And especially, and I think if there's one measure that we can use that is the most important, and that is the death rate. I'm looking at your graph up there, and I'm not sure that's what those percentages are, but I mean, according to Statistica, I mean, the death rate, we are all bunched in about the same group here, this 9 state area, Illinois being right in the middle.
Yeah, no, that's the COVID numbers per 100,000 people. So it's a lot of the same data. But as you pointed out, Illinois has the lowest death rate. Well, Mayor, we applaud you for taking a stand. I'm not sure the governor's listening to you, but those of us who enjoy working out and going to restaurants without masks certainly appreciate it. It's good talking to you, sir.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Thank you. In Colorado, sex offenders aren't sex offenders anymore. They are now the Colorado Sex Offender Management Board, having voted Friday 10-6 for a name change. ColoradoPolitics.com explains its proponents of the change did so based on the notion that labeling an individual as a sex offender creates a public perception that they are a threat to public safety, regardless of their current status. Proponents also claim the change would reduce recidivism and minimize the chances of repeat offenders. In Colorado, sex offenders are now adults who commit sexual offenses. As you might imagine, not everybody's on board with that change, including prosecutors, sexual assault survivors, and just about anybody else with a brain. Kimberly Corban is a sexual assault survivor and advocate, joining us now from Colorado. Kimberly, it's good to have you. Why the coddling of sex offenders?
This is actually something that we've been seeing take place in our state legislature for the last couple of years. There has not been much of a victim presence at the Capitol, and a lot of it is because we don't know what's going on. There was something that was trying to be pushed through in the summertime that we were working on getting reworded, and all of it happened behind closed doors. That's very much what this feels like with the Sex Offender Management Board looking for and creating this task force to investigate person first language.
So do sex offenders have some like stunningly powerful lobby in Colorado?
You would be surprised, and it's not just in Colorado. I do warn everyone, Colorado typically serves as a litmus test for the rest of the nation. The things that we are progressive on eventually trickle down to the other states, so it is always a state to watch. Now, when it comes to the sex offender apologists, if you will, you have a lot of folks with either criminal defense, public defenders, the inmates or sex offenders themselves, family members, and just in general, those kinds of people who aren't always going to put their face out there and speak about it, but they can get behind the scenes and talk to the people that they need to make this sound like it's a much bigger issue than in reality it is.
It's just bizarre to me that you'd have public officials who would be, for lack of a better term, pro-sex offender. I'm sure they would take umbrage with that classification, but that's sort of what you're saying. The victims' rights movement's near and dear to my heart for some personal reasons. But what's interesting to me is this is sort of giving rights to sex offenders, not out of some constitutional duty, but out of a social justice movement of some type.
I look at the criminal justice reform under a large umbrella, and there are many different components to it. This is based on something called the labeling theory. It's what we learned about in undergrad when you were taking any kind of criminal justice sociology class. And it's intended for those, say, with physical, cognitive disabilities, based on gender, sexuality, any of those things that someone did not choose. The problem with sex offenders being labeled in person first under that labeling theory is that they made that choice. This is something that they did. We had another sex offender on that board meeting saying that he shouldn't be punished for something that he did half a lifetime ago. I shouldn't be punished for it, period. I should not have to live my entire life as a victim or a survivor, however I choose to identify, because it wasn't my choice. And if we're not going to treat sex offenders like the sex offenders that they are and the potential to create yet another risk, then what is the reason that the victims like me would even want to come forward? There's no teeth to it. There's no accountability, and it's starting at the provider level, and it's just going to keep going.
Language is important in this case, and what I'm trying to understand is that does this person first language, or the way you're seeing it, is it effectively trying to make it so that the sex offender sort of this amorphous thing happened, and that's why they raped somebody? Not that they chose to rape somebody, somehow diffuses responsibility?
Sure, it kind of goes both ways. There are so many rehabilitation treatments and things that offenders in the Colorado Department of Corrections can go through. Access to those is very difficult. So they are looking at if they are released and they're under parole board SOMB management, then the people that are working with those offenders are going to be calling them either clients or this person first language, where it's a person who committed a sexual offense. What they were going back and forth on is that something that should be used in the context of this could happen again, or is it something that happened in the past? And the problem with all of this is that, first off, nobody asked victims. Nobody cared to bring us to the table and say, hey, this could possibly be damaging. And so, yes, I think coddling is a really great word, but this, and I hate this very cliche term, but it's a slippery slope, because it's not just going to be sex offenders. You are next going to be talking about justice-involved individuals, persons who have committed homicide, and the list will go on and on. This is not going to be a first and only stop.
Well, and it's not going to be the first and only stop for sex offenders to be coddled and labeled as having been rehabilitated. Suddenly, it goes on and on. They won't have to register and the like. Hey, Kimberly, we really appreciate you coming on. It takes somebody with an awfully strong compass to be willing to stand up and talk about these issues. And I know there's a lot of people watching who are really proud and happy and thankful that you're their voice. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to come back on anytime.
All right, we'll see you soon. Wall Street thieves as Wall Street thrives. We had thieves on our mind earlier, but Wall Street is thriving as Main Street struggles. How the empty shelves crisis is pushing small businesses to the brink.
But we still face challenges in our economy. Disruptions related to the pandemic have caused challenges in our supply chain, which have sparked concern about shortages and contributed to higher prices.
It's President Biden today admitting to a problem we've been telling you about for months. Prices for everything from gas to groceries are sky high, and it's going higher, and people are talking about it. We're going to talk about it at the Thanksgiving table. Everybody's feeling the financial strain, including consumers and small business owners. Everybody but America's biggest companies. The Wall Street Journal reports nearly 2 out of 3 of the biggest U.S. publicly traded companies have reported fatter profit margins so far this year than over the same stretch in 2019. The rich get richer. The mom and pop shops in towns across the country, Main Street, are struggling, and they may not make it through this empty shelves crisis. We've heard that from a lot of places. Kevin Hubbard is one of the little guys, proud of it, co-founder of Roback, casual clothing company based in Virginia. Kevin, good to be with you. What's different about the challenges that Roback faces than Costco or Amazon?
Yeah, well, Leland, as a small business, we'll do 35% of our sales in these next 2 months, November and December. And there's a myriad of issues, kind of supply chain issues, postal service issues, inflation, and getting great workers in. All those things kind of combining to create some fun challenges for us, and stuff that we're looking to overcome this holiday season and going into next year strong.
Yeah, fun challenges, I feel like, translate to not much sleep. We'll see if you're smiling this big on December 23rd as you are right now. But it brings us an interesting point, and that is that everything that you guys are doing costs more now. You mentioned Amazon's got their own fleet of delivery. You've got to pay the Postal Service to deliver stuff for you. What's that mean?
Yeah, not only that, but on October 1st, the Postal Service shipped their first class packages from 3-day standard to 5-day standard. So what that means is we have less of a time to sell before the holidays really kick in. So that's why you're seeing a lot of small businesses offer their best Black Friday sales now, as opposed to when they would normally offer it on Black Friday, because we're trying to get all our shipments to our customers before that cutoff comes in.
You know, it's so easy to say, oh, well, gee, the guys who own the businesses, they're making all the money all as well. Because of the inflation, because of spending more to get goods in, because of higher wages you're having to pay, what haven't you all been able to do that would have been good for the economy?
Sleep. But in terms of the economy, I mean, we're going to find a way to get there. We've doubled our workforce here in the office doing fulfillment, right? I mean, we've got school teachers here, we have students here. It's a really great team atmosphere, but not having that surplus profit from the inflation definitely kind of slows our growth as a brand. Luckily, we kind of saw this coming, so we over-ordered. Wow. So, you know, we have only gotten 60 to 70% of what we would normally get. But at the same time, we were prepared. And because of that, we are up, you know, over 200% this specific month. But we would have been up a lot higher if you know, we had no inflation, no supply chain issues.
Well, and obviously you take a lot of those profits. You're a growing business. You're going to invest them back in to the business itself. Kevin, appreciate you coming on. We're going to check back in with you throughout the next 2 months to see how your sleep works. We appreciate you being with us. Congratulations on the success. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Leland.
Yeah, it's great. NASA is launching a mission to protect the world from an asteroid Armageddon. We're not making this up. They're actually doing it. We'll tell you next. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.